So, we wanted to introduce a Chinese dish that maybe you'd never heard of before,珍珠丸子, or Pearl Meatballs. This dish comes from the Hubei province of China, which is a really underrated cuisine in my opinion. So, these are pork meatballs coated in sticky rice and steamed, and they are delicious. The cut of pork that we're using here is the leg, which is often called the ham in the West. So you should be working with a ratio of about 70% lean and 30% fat. The basic idea here is that in our meatballs, we're going to be finely mincing the lean, but just dicing the fat. So cut up the lean into cubes like this to get ready for the fine mince. But our fat, we're just going to dice and then set it aside. We want decent sized chunks of fat, so don't get too fine. Something like this is about perfect. The fat is really going to add a lot of flavor and also texture to our dish, so something like that's perfect. Now, peel some ginger. You can do it with a knife like this, or you can also use a spoon like I do. So you're just going to dice this up and then toss it in with the lean pork to mince. So the flavor profile of this dish is jiangsong, ginger, and green onion. So don't be shy with the ginger quantity. It's going to be one of the major components of the flavor profile of this dish. And now we can mince our lean and ginger. Now you might be asking me, I don't have a meat mincing machine. How am I going to do this? Well, it's honestly, I think, a little bit better if we use a couple knives, or you can also use one knife, to simply chop up the meat just basically like this, chop and fold. You can also use one knife, like I was saying, and the process is basically exactly the same. Chop it as finely as you can, and then fold it. So this is about 10 or 15 minutes later. You should be getting a mince that's actually much finer than what you would get if you put it into a machine. And finally, the mince is going to look something like this. Now for our marinade. Toss the mince and the diced fat that you reserved earlier into a big bowl, and you're going to add a slurry of cornstarch and some water that dried mushrooms had been soaking this. You're going to add a teaspoon of liaozhou, some stock concentrate. This is high quality concentrate that we buy in Guangzhou, but feel free to use bouillon or MSG. Also some soy sauce, normal light soy sauce, about 4 teaspoons. We'll also be adding some sesame oil, toasted sesame oil, of course. We will be adding some white pepper, and you could obviously sub black, some sugar, and also crack an egg into this and start mixing. So bring all these ingredients together. Now, after the initial mixing here, I actually end up taking over. We usually do big batch of the stuff, and I often am the one that gets mixing duties. Now, what I've found is that it helps to hold your chopsticks, sort of like a grandmother trying to use chopsticks for the first time, something like that. And you're going to set your vintage-style hand mixer on high, making sure to only stir in one direction. After a couple minutes, it should be firm and sticky like this. We're also going to be adding some diced lotus root, some diced dried shiitake mushrooms that we reconstituted, and some green onion. Now, in Chinese cooking, lots of times they'll ask for the white part of the green onion like this. To generalize, Chinese cooking usually uses the white part in the beginning of the cooking process and the green part later on in the cooking process. Now that we've diced those up, set those aside as the meat mixture is marinating. So we have this super cool bamboo steamer set up. You could just use a plate if you needed, but we can use leaves. These are reed leaves. and you can just cut them up and you put them kind of as like the bottom, the floor of your bamboo steamer. Again, you could use banana leaf. You don't need to do this. You just get super authentic bonus points. Okay, now that we've done all that, the meat should have been marinating maybe about 20 minutes. So you're just going to be adding some salt, stir it around, mix it evenly. And then also you're going to be adding the rest of your ingredients, the mushroom, the white part of the green onion, and then also the diced lotus root. Diced lotus root is basically for texture. You could also use water chestnut, and you're just going to be stirring that evenly. Now, take out your meat, and this is ready to dat. Dat is just we take the meat and then we slam it against the bowl. It improves the texture, and it's super fun to get your hands all dirty. After you've dotted it a couple times, you are ready to make your meatballs. So the meatballs, we made meatballs a little bit bigger than 1 tablespoon of meat. Shape your meatballs, and you are going to be rolling it in the sticky rice. Now, this sticky rice, we had been soaking for a few hours beforehand. Please don't forget to soak your sticky rice. If you're thinking about making this dish, go soak your sticky rice right now. Again, this is about 1 tablespoon. The egg in the mixture is going to make this a little bit sticky, not the easiest meatball to roll, but it should look something like this. Now, a couple of these meatballs, we put a little bit too much sticky rice in. You want to be a little bit careful that you're not putting too much sticky rice in the meatball. Otherwise, it's going to kind of be like under-seasoned and under-salty. This last one right here that we rolled is about perfect, though, so you can get a good idea. So now that we have everything, we put it in our super cool bamboo steamer, you're going to steam it. If you have a steamer set up like this is going to be about 5 or 6 minutes. If not, it might be about 10. Use a thermometer if you're not sure. So after 5 or 6 minutes, it's going to kind of look like this. You can garnish with a little bit of the green onion to make it all pretty. So specifically, this dish comes from Mianyang in Hubei province, and it forms one part of the Mianyang Sanjiang, or the 3 steams of Mianyang. Traditionally, this is going to be 1 steamed meat dish, 1 steamed veg dish, and 1 steamed fish dish. I really hope that you give this one a try. It's not as hard as it looks, and it's quite tasty.